Good evening, Razorback Nation. We are back tonight with our Thursday night episode after taking a quick break on Sunday. And we've got a jam-packed episode for you guys tonight talking about the Week 7 matchup as Petrino heads to Knoxville, this Arkansas Razorback team. We got some basketball news, the dissolving of Arkansas Edge being no more, and the details on that and what Hunter Yurchek had to say and things like that, all in tonight's episode. But before we get started, we got to thank our lovely sponsors over at Razor Pigs. Looking good never felt so fun. Razor Pigs is the Arkansas-born brand, bringing some serious style to the golf course, tailgate, and everywhere in between. From high-quality polos to head-turning hats, they've got what you need to rep the natural state with pride. Found right here at home and now run by a Razorback-loving family, Razor Pigs is where comfort meets cool, so go hog wild and shop Razor Pigs today at razorpigs.us. And our friends over at Scarlet Letter, Arkansas's very own handcrafted spiked seltzer. You can check them out today. And if you are in Northwest Arkansas, check out the Cold Brewery Tap Room, where you can get Scarlet Letter in all its various flavors, as well as their new hard teas. And so, how are we doing this Thursday night, boys?
Good. Today is actually my Friday, so I'm doing very good.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty good time, man. Play Tennessee this weekend. We'll see what happens. And, the baseball playoffs in October have not disappointed. They've been phenomenal.
Yeah. So, this is a big week, for Arkansas as, this is, as I kind of titled the episode, Petrino's proving ground. It's, he's leading his first game as the head hog, interim head hog, whatever you want to call it, but he's back in the driver's seat. And, we saw him in his first press conference this week, game week press conference. We saw him have, the radio show at Catfish Hole for the first time is kind of being back in the, as the head coach. And it was interesting to hear what he talked about, what they worked on this week and, some of the focuses that they had. And, he talked about that and they interviewed Talon and Caleb Wooden as well, and they talked about how practices have been different. Petrino had mentioned how he's an early practice guy, so his practices are early. He likes to, lift more frequently than, maybe what Pittman's schedule was, and how that, he's been popping around different places. He's able to, pop in the quarterback room, but Miles Fishback's been running that now. And working with the defense as far as getting this back to the basics, as he likes to keep saying, getting back to the basics, getting aligned properly, getting in a good stance. He liked to talk about getting in a good stance. And then he said, running to the ball. He said, I'm not talking about running to the ball. He's like flat out running 100% to the ball. And so, we'll see if that makes a difference this week as Arkansas goes on the road and has a tough test in Neyland in front of 100,000 plus fans in Tennessee. And this offense that, they've been pretty good this season. Joe Aguilar has been very impressive so far for Tennessee. That was a question mark after Nico decided to leave. What would they do? Quarterback situation. Well, they haven't been hurting so far. So going in this game and what Petrino had to say this week, what are you guys' thoughts on what he mentioned this week and, what some of the players had to say?
I mean, it's hard to say anything. I mean, it's coach speak to a point. It's there to make you feel good. At the same time, it could very well turn into something glorious on Saturday. Who knows? Am I betting for that? Probably not. But at the same time, you look at what UCLA did, right? And they had a coach that didn't even know how to use the headset to talk to Nico. And the thing is, Bobby knows how to do that for sure because he coached from the box this year. I don't know. I'm having a little bit of optimism going into this game. I don't think Arkansas really has a chance, but there's part of that like deep inside fandom that's like Arkansas can win this game, but my head is like telling me no. But yeah, it's I'm just more just bewildered to see Bobby Petrino up there talking as the head coach again. He could probably say anything. I would just be like, staring at the camera like, or at my screen. So I don't know. I just have to see it. I just have to see what it looks like first before I can really give you anything.
Yeah, it's hard to know what's going to happen on Saturday. It's just, you want to go down memory lane and think that we're going to see the old times again, and you just don't know. So I'm excited about that part of the unknown, of getting to see what, the attitude of the team is going to be different, as the defense is going to be flying around more than what they were, the lack of effort against Notre Dame. So I'm excited. And is the offense going to actually, be consistent when it comes to putting drive after drive together? Because when they're rolling, they're fantastic, but they do stall, and hopefully we don't hit those stalling points. But Tennessee's dangerous, man. They've got a high-powered offense, and they're at home playing 100,000 people, so it's just tough.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like Austin hinted around about. I'm trying to be cautiously optimistic. Not that I'm thinking, oh, we're just going to come out and win this game, but do we see improvements on the defense? Do we actually keep this a close game compared to what we saw against Notre Dame? Is this a close game and we don't just get blown out, where we actually look like a competitive team? More emphasis on that on the defensive side of the ball. But to like Hobbs' point too, let's see some consistency out of this offense. We know before that we can score in the first half, but can we come out and put up points in the second half when it's more important and crucial? I mean, I looked at this stat, and we were talking about this before, we jumped on here. You look at Arkansas and what they've been able to do this year with the offense, and it's vastly improved from last season. Well, across college football, coming into this week, Arkansas ranks as the highest red zone touchdown rate team in the country at 89.5%. So, essentially, if you round up a little bit, 9 out of 10 times we in a red zone, we're getting a touchdown. And so, as we go into this game, if we can make some improvements to the defense, like Petrino has hinted on in the past 2 weeks, and his press conferences on, just getting in the right alignments, getting in good stances, and making sure we're flying to the ball. Maybe that's what this team needed, was getting back to the basics. Slimming down the playbook, if you will. They talked about that too, where getting back to the basics and basic formations and sets that allow this team to have success. And I think that's what I'm just looking forward to seeing this weekend is, do we see improvement on the defensive side of the ball? And from that, does that allow, and what mentality and attitude does this team come in? Do they come in fired up, ready to play after, having the bye week to kind of process things after the firing, and then, game week this week, go through prep, and are they ready to come out and play?
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see for sure. I do like seeing, I guess these guys, I mean, like body language, they kind of look a little bit defeated, but it doesn't, defeated is the wrong word. I think shell shocked a little bit. But that's where, whenever you have adversity like that, that's when you see these kids grow, right? And I said it on a podcast yesterday, with a Tennessee guy. This team, understand, Pittman has always flirted with that line of exceeding exceeding when faced with adversity, or falling when faced with adversity. And I think, I mean, if anybody's going to get these kids to, excel, it's going to be Bobby Petrino, because I mean, he doesn't leave room for the opposite to happen, right? He's a perfectionist. We knew that. Like this team's either going to crash and burn, or they're going to like turn the thing around and win a couple games that they shouldn't. But that being said, I mean, the first test obviously is huge. I mean, everyone talks about, going to Death Valley and, having the, stadiums like that. But Neyland Stadium is one of those that's, especially under the lights, which thank God the Arkansas is not playing there at night. Under the lights, that crowd gets rowdy. I mean, they're the ones who threw the mustard, right? A couple of years ago. They get rowdy, and they kind of remind me of Arkansas fans to a point, except they've had a little bit more success in their program history. But I think if they can go in there and at least give a good showing, maybe that can give a little bit more confidence to these guys, right? If they can go out there and they can do that, they can fly to the ball and get lined up. I mean, that's so crazy to say about, this far into the season, 5 games in. But if they can just get lined up right and they can, not have to think about playing defense, and they can go out there and they can, roll down the field, because Tennessee, we can talk about it in a minute, but Tennessee's defense isn't super good. I mean, about every metric, they're down there with Arkansas, just about everything, points, or scoring defense, passing defense. They're not very good, right? And they haven't played as hard a schedule as Arkansas's played either. They've had Georgia, right? But everyone else, not very good. Arkansas's already played Notre Dame and Ole Miss. So there's a little bit of a silver lining there. But I don't know. This is just a big test. And then from there, we can see, what fork on the road, what road they take at the fork. You guys know what I'm trying to say here. There's a fork in the road. Which one do they take? This is where that happens in this game. And I think, what was it? What's their names? Chuck and Bo, they kind of said that the players are going to decide whether or not Bobby Petrino even has a shot at being the coach this year or next year. So we'll see, because that's, in a lot of ways, that rings true.
Right.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like you said, at this fork in the road, are they going to be the team that crashes and burns, or are they going to, be like a phoenix rise from the ashes and kind of, have a decent-ish season? It's like people were talking about it. It'd be impressive to see if, can Bobby get this team to 5 wins? That's winning 3 more games out of this next, schedule. And so, yeah, let's talk about what you mentioned. We'll go to the Tennessee defense. They've got a high-powered offense. We know that. That's the high-pull type offense that But defensively, yeah, you look at their games, they're 4-1, but, allowed 26 points against Syracuse, had that overtime game against Georgia that went back and forth. And, UAB put up 24 points. And then Mississippi State took them to overtime, put up 34 points. So, this defense has some holes. And even Mike Washington mentioned that this week, is that this team has some holes. And if this offense of Bobby Petrino that has the 89.5, touchdown rate in the end zone can, be that offense we saw at the beginning of the season, in the first 2 to 3 games, where you're just get it rolling, high efficiency, Taylor's making the plays on the ground. He's hitting Omega Blake, Raylan Sharp, these guys for some clutch passes. We might can hang with them. And that's all dependent on our defense. But, in terms of what we're talking about with Tennessee's defense, it's nothing to rave or, send home about, because, as Austin alluded to, they're just about in the same category as Arkansas. They just have not had the inconsistencies in offense that Arkansas's had.
True. And they haven't played the type of teams Arkansas has either. I mean, Memphis isn't like that great of a team, but at the same time, I can pull up who Tennessee's played, but it hasn't been.
Yeah, Syracuse,
Ole Miss,
Tennessee State, Georgia, UAB, and Mississippi State.
Yeah. Mississippi State, though, I mean, I think they're a lot better than what we thought they were going to be. True. But still, it's not Notre Dame. It's not Ole Miss.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see, because Tennessee, they play well at home. So that's the biggest factor to me in this game. If we're playing in Arkansas, I may feel differently about it, but I don't know. It's interesting to see how.
Well, I think we just lost. So
hey, I was about to tell them Arkansas plays better on the road than they play at home. So I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know if I completely agree with that.
Right.
Yeah, we lost Hobbs.
We'll see if he jumps back on here in a minute. But yeah, you look at it, the game started out or the spread for this game started out at the beginning of the week as a, nearly a 2-touchdown favorite for Tennessee, and we're sitting here, 8 o'clock Thursday night, and that spread's down to 11.5. Yes, it's 2 points, but you start seeing the spread trickle down a little bit. Maybe people are feeling a little bit more confident that Petrino can, and again, I'm not saying Arkansas is going to come out and win, but can Arkansas come out and be more competitive? And I think that's what maybe, you see him talk in the radio show and his press conferences. And, there's a little bit of ease in the tension of, well, I don't know exactly how this is going to work. And, I saw somebody, it cracked me up. Somebody said, and talk about the press conference, it's nice to have a coach for once that is going to come out and give you just straight answers in a press conference instead of trying to talk around a question. If you watch the press conference this week that Petrino had, he answered every question and gave you a straight answer for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's coach speak, but he's still giving you kind of straightforward answers.
Yeah, but I think Coach Pittman did that too, in a sense. I think he was just a little too honest a lot of the time. I think Bobby Petrino is much better at being a politician than Sam Pittman ever will be. That being said, like you said, what I want to see from this team is fight, right? If we see some fight, if we see these guys who have, especially on defense, who just didn't look like they were alive out there, basically. If we see a little bit of fight from them, I will have some hope for this season. Right now, I still think it's a wash. I don't know if Arkansas will win another game. I'm probably not going to bet on them to win another game.
I agree. I feel the same.
But at the same time, I still have that hope. I mean, I don't think that's ever going to go away. I know the talent they have on this team, though. Like, we know they have a good set of talent. And Arkansas is down 3 receivers right now. Remember that, too. Like, they're down Monte Harrison, Jalen Brown, and Cece, who was supposed to be.
Oh, yeah, Ismail Cisse.
Yeah, who was supposed to be a starting receiver who Arkansas lost before the season even started.
Right.
But they still have a good pool of pass catchers out there that it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters, right? I hate that these guys are injured, but it doesn't matter in the sense that it's going to hurt the team because, I mean, you have Courtney Crutchfield, who's probably going to get a lot of touches or at least a lot of looks in the upcoming games because they have to put them out there. But that type of talent, having that type of talent back up to your guys, it's really nice. And that's what Bobby Petrino has to work with. As long as the players can buy into it and show a little bit of fight, I have some hope.
Right. And I agree. I mean, you look at it too, and I think, you're going to see some other guys get some run like you talked about. You look at what is, going on with this receiving group. That's what you're going to have to deal with, next man up mentality. I mean, if you even look, people joked around. They said Petrino's not even playing around with the injury report for this week that was released yesterday, the initial one. And they're just out. No questionable, no probable. It's just out. And, right now that list includes defensive back Quintravious Scandrett, wide receivers Monte Harrison, Ismail Cisse, Jalen Brown. Those 3 we know that's a given. A couple surprises for me is running back AJ Green, even though we hadn't necessarily seen him much this season. Tight end Jeremiah Becht, another guy that we hadn't really seen at all this season. And then Andreas Puska is out this week, a little bit surprised there. And then David Oki. So, Oki must have re-aggravated an injury that he had at the beginning of the season. But, overall, not missing a ton. Another guy that, you mentioned Courtney Crutchfield, and I know a lot of Hog fans have been waiting to see him get on the field, and, I'm excited to see that. But another guy that he mentioned in the press conference this week that I'm excited to see is Antonio Jordan. They asked him about that in the presser, and he said, yeah, he's definitely a guy that can help us and that he's going to get out there and, I'm excited to see what he can do. Big bodied freshman that has, a lot of upside and a lot of athletic ability and talent. Like he said, next man up attitude for these guys. Who's going to be that next guy behind, Omega Blake, Raylan Sharp, and CJ Brown. He said CJ Brown's going to move to that spot Jaylen Brown was playing and be the starter on the outside, which will allow them to move Raylan Sharp inside. And, they'll, of course, rotate through some guys. But, to see Crutchfield and Antonio Jordan get some reps this week would be very nice.
I mean, I made a joke about it, but how nice would it be to have Antonio Jordan come out there and have a Dallas Wilson from Florida type game just right out the gate like that? I mean, they're like the same size, 6'3", 213 for this Dallas Wilson guy. He had 111 yards and got 2 touchdowns against Texas, who has a decent defense.
Right.
What if Arkansas had a game changer like that come in? I mean, how would you feel going into the season even if Arkansas doesn't win, but you see like Antonio Jordan have this type of game, not necessarily like this great, but basically a breakout game for his first time.
Right. You see that flash and, that potential upside of like, all right, we might have ourselves a weapon. So, yeah, I mean, that would be fantastic to see either him or Courtney Crutchfield do that. They've talked about that. Those guys are both bigger receivers that, I feel like Arkansas has been missing that. Yeah, you got Omega Blake, but other than that, you've been playing with a lot of shorter, speedier guys, with Jaylen Brown, Raylan Sharp, CJ Brown, guys that don't have a ton of just size. They're big or they may be a little bit tall, but they're slimmer, faster type receivers. And so it'll be fun to see what Bobby dials up this week on the offense. And, if you caught it, they talked to him about moving back down to the sideline. He was like, part of it, he was like, it was nice to move back up because then I didn't have to worry about getting onto the officials or dealing with the officials. I liked how he slipped that in. So, will we see a little bit of fiery Bobby Petrino this week as he gets back on the sideline, calling the plays, and, trying to get some type of spark with this Arkansas team?
Oh man, it would be fun. You know what? If anything, this season's at least going to give Arkansas some closure with that whole debacle that happened like a decade ago. Because just seeing them out there, first of all, just seeing them out there in hog gear, it has been crazy since last year. But to see them out there like with the entire reins of this team, running his, all the stuff that he wants to do, it's so weird. It's so weird to see. But yeah, I hope I see him grill some officials at least once or twice. Because I mean, Sam Pittman for what he's been in the past, this year he was a little bit more feisty, right? And I did like that about him. It's just I think stuff kind of fell apart on him. And it was a little bit too little too late, to be honest with you. But that's kind of what you want to see. You want to see guys who are fighting for you on the sidelines as well. And hopefully maybe that's going to, give this team another step up too. Just seeing his reaction to stuff that may be a little bit more intense than what Sam Pittman did.
Right.
Even though it may be like the argument may be just as fiery, more as intense as what Bobby Petrino would do, at least the expression of it is different with Bobby Petrino, and it's easier to see.
Right.
The bad thing about that is they probably going to get that in the film room on Sunday and Monday. So, it's a double-edged sword.
Right. And that's the thing too, because I'll be interested to watch the first bad call Arkansas gets. Does the camera automatically pan to Coach Petrino? Because it's very good odds that Arkansas is going to get a bad call in this game. We get bad calls in all games. Not saying all the officials are against us, but it just seems to be Arkansas's luck that we get handed some bad calls sometimes. And so does that fiery reaction from Petrino give this team, does it kind of spark them, get them fired up, and things like that, and get some momentum. So, it's
Yeah,
going to be
because you could. I mean,
Go
like
ahead.
think about that Memphis game. Those two ridiculous calls. I think Bobby Petrino might have been thrown out of the game for that. To be honest with
Right.
you, because they were bad. Just imagine if Arkansas would have seen some fire from him on the sidelines and had a little bit more, stuff behind it whenever they got into the fourth quarter. And I don't know, it's all ifs and buts, but still.
Yeah. So, it's going to be a fun one to watch on Saturday, just to the fact to see what happens, see what team shows up. Is this a vastly improved team? Do we kind of see a 360 or, some type of improvement on this defense? And so, 3:15 on Saturday on the SEC Network. So an afternoon game, not under the lights at Neyland. So, Arkansas heads for their second road SEC game before they come back home for a 3-game stretch of home games. And we'll see what Petrino does. We'll see how ready this team is. We'll see him back on the sidelines as the head coach for the first time in, like you said, a decade, having the full reins of the offense and this team behind him. It's going to be fun. I'm excited just to sit back and kind of see what happens. It's like I said before, that's kind of the mentality of the rest of the season is, nobody's really expecting this team to do anything the rest of the year. And so it's like, let's sit back and just enjoy and see what happens. Are we surprised are we sitting here at the end of the season? And this is just being very optimistic, sitting there at like, oh, we got to 6-6 and we might have a bowl game. Or, we got 5-7 and, there's a good chance Petrino is here next season as the head coach, things like that. So, and what transpires over the rest of the season.
Right. And you got to think about it from Bobby Petrino's point of view too. It's he has to win at least 3 games, right, to get to 5 to be considered, but to like legitimately have a shot, I think he has to at least make a bowl game. And what's to say if he goes out there and wins 4 games and gets to 7 overall, it's going to be incredibly hard for Arkansas to say no to him.
Right.
From what we've seen to going and getting 7 wins in the regular season, it's going to be hard to say no to Bobby Petrino.
Especially because all those teams are coming against some top SEC teams because you're already past your quote-unquote easy games.
Right.
Now you're into the heart of the schedule where, you look at your next few games, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Auburn, Mississippi State, all teams that have been having decent seasons, not to mention you round out the season with at Texas, at LSU, and Missouri at home.
Yeah, and to be fair, but
you find 4 wins in that.
Well, the thing is, Texas doesn't look very good, right? Mississippi State, although I think they're good, I still think they're beatable.
And it's here.
Auburn may not have a coach whenever that happens.
And it's here.
Then the other one, I don't know. Yeah, it would be hard. Now, if LSU can't score against Arkansas, Arkansas is going to win that game, and they have to find some kind of offense before that happens.
Right.
But still, I mean, if they score, if Arkansas can keep them under like 28 points, then Arkansas is probably going to win that game. I don't think it'll happen because Arkansas's defense is horrible. But there's maybe 4, maybe. But it would be so hard. It's still going to be hard no matter what. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. And so, that brings me into what I want to talk about next. And we kind of talked about this pre-show is, all right, we said if, it's probably going to take 3, most likely 4 wins the rest of the season for Petrino to secure secure the job for next year and the next potential few years. But, over the past week, coaching rumors, interviews, things have been swirling. And, a guy that's gotten a lot of steam this past week. You know, the week before it was all about Rhett Lashley. Well, this week it seems the tune has changed for a lot of Razorback fans, as now the talk for the next head coach is a former SEC, coach that Arkansas is very familiar with, Dan Mullen, who's currently at UNLV and has the Rebels there at 5-0.
Right. And I mean, I came out today and I mean, I've been flirting with the idea, I think, on here a couple times of saying it, but the more and more I think about it, the more and more Dan Mullen makes sense to me. And I know that's not going to be, there's a lot of people out there that don't like it. And I think mostly it's because he's not a flashy hire, not a very flashy hire. We were talking about John Gruden earlier. I mean, that's obviously, people think it's a pipe dream to go for Arkansas to go get him. I think the Arkansas job is a pipe dream for John Gruden, to be quite honest with you. I just don't know if he has the X's and O's, but what he does have is that name recognition, right? The ability to go out there with just his name and get all this money, most likely, because it's going to get everybody excited. It's going to get the fans excited. Because even though I don't think he'll be good, if Arkansas were to hire John Gruden, I would be excited to see what this is going to happen, or what's going to happen with him. And that's going to be like that with the boosters, with recruits, with everybody. Dan Mullen doesn't do that right off the bat. But what he does have is a history of winning in the SEC. Name any of those other coaches. John Summerall, Golish down at USF, Rhett Lashley. None of them have experience in the SEC, right? Sure, he had a couple bad years at Florida. He did. One of the things that I am a little bit worried with him is that his relationship with some of the boosters at Florida, which apparently he pissed a couple off and they pulled funding and, all that stuff. But look at Florida now. 4 years after he's left, what are they? They are 21-22. Is that because of Dan Mullen? No, it's most likely because of the decisions that Florida's administration and the boosters at Florida have made, right?
Right.
They've had decent recruiting classes with Dan Mullen, with Billy Napier, and they still can't get it done. So I think that has way more to do with Florida and the toxic culture they have. And trust me, it's the pot calling the kettle black, because Arkansas is exactly the same way. But I think that it feels like Arkansas is on the precipice of like changing all that with this hire. And they just need that one good hire. They need someone who is proven that he can win, right? John Summerall can be a good coach. I think he's going to be a good coach. Do you want to take that gamble again?
Right.
Like, we've talked how many times that this has to go right. This hire has to be the right hire, or Arkansas's football program may never see, the days of old again.
Right. Yeah, and you look at you talk about that. Yeah, and you talk about that provenness of Dan Mullen. So, let's take a quick glimpse at his resume at Mississippi State in the SEC. So, he had 2 seasons at Mississippi State, under 7 wins. His initial first season there, and then his second to last. Other than that, so 5-7 in 2009, his initial season. From then on, 9-4, 7-6, 8-5, 7-6, 10-3, 9-4, 6-7, 8-4, and in that span of 8 years at Mississippi State, he was 5-2 in bowl games as well. Went to 8 bowls in that span. So, I mean, has shown he can win at a school like Mississippi State. Not saying Mississippi State's a bad school, but I feel like they're like right around the same level Arkansas is in terms of in the SEC and, booster sport, things like that. And then, he jumps over to Florida in 2018, 10-3, 11-2, 8-4. And then the season he got let go after a 5-6 season. So, 34-15 at Florida. Everybody's due a bad year, down year every now and then. And then now you're looking at him sitting at 5-0 with UNLV. Yes, it's UNLV, but
Right.
he's on the edge of potentially winning the Mountain West this year with UNLV.
Yeah, think about it. He may be taking UNLV to the college football playoffs, right? I don't know, man. It just makes so much sense. And from what I've read and heard, and there is huge mutual interest between Mullen and Arkansas. And that's something else that you can't really say with the other guys, right? I think Summerall and Rhett Lashley, even though he's playing it cool, they don't have as much mutual interest as I think that Mullen in Arkansas does. At the same time, too, like look, instead of just talking about Dan Mullen, let's look at the other ones, right? Rhett Lashley has played in the AAC for now 1 and almost a half years. Yes, he took them to the college football playoffs, but with one of the easiest schedules out of anyone in the college football playoff, and that's counting Boise State, right? The ACC is not good at all. Now look at John Summerall. Yes, he's done great, but he hasn't played hasn't coached in a Power 4 conference. Golish hasn't done it. I think Kenny Dillingham would be a really good one too. But at the same time, what makes him more different than Dan Mullen, other than Dan Mullen's been around longer?
Right.
And I know retread is also a bad thing, but at the same time, he hasn't slowed down. He's had one bad year since 2010. He's had one bad year. And what I mean by bad, I mean Arkansas standard bad. Because if you go out there and you win 7 games a year, you may be a lifetime coach at Arkansas. I know people don't want to hear that, but that's kind of the way it is. But also, we're not trying to find the football's Calipari right now. How many times have we talked about Sam Pittman being the Mike Anderson of Arkansas football?
Right. And your next step is Eric Musselman.
And your next step is Eric Musselman. And I'm not saying you need to have a person like Eric Musselman. You just have to have the results that Eric Musselman did. Right. That's who you're trying to find right now. You're trying to find someone who can get you back to that level that Mississippi State was at. Going and flirting with 8 and 9 wins every single year. Maybe get you the 10 wins here and there.
Yeah.
That's what you're flirting with. And then after a while, because he's 53, he could be there 5 or 6 years. You know what? If it's getting stale and you have boosters saying, hey, we want to go and we want to get this really good hire one year, and you have a chance to wait on it, that's what you need to do. And I know kind of Calipari just kind of fell in Arkansas's lap. But at the same time, if you're being proactive, which our AD hasn't been proactive, if you can be proactive, you can go out there and find somebody who wants to come here and coach Arkansas. And if they can do this, if they can do what he did at Mississippi State, someone is going to want to come and coach at Arkansas.
Right. Yeah. So you look at his contract that he has currently with UNLV. When he signed on at UNLV after last year, after Barry Odom left to Purdue, he signed a 5-year, $17.5 million contract, which pays him $3.5 million annually. He has bonuses, of course. So 5-year deal. He got a $35,000 signing bonus, bonus structure. So he gets $25,000 for winning the Mountain West championship, making the college football playoff, $100,000, national championship, $100,000. But here's where we need to highlight is these buyout clauses for Dan Mullen. So if he leaves for a Power 4 / NFL job, if he accepts head coaching job, he before December 1st of 2025, he owes $7 million in buyout, which Arkansas would pay if they did go after and hire him. His buyout decreases $1 million per year. If they fire him without cause before December of 2029, the school still owes him 80%. And then if he gets a new job, UNLV's obligation ceases if he's hired by another team. So, not an insane buyout. And I don't know what it dropped to, if it dropped down to $6 million after December 1st, because I don't know if we would hire him before December 1st, because if he's talking about playoffs and stuff like that, he's still gonna be coaching. So
True. And that's another thing you'll have to worry about too. Like if you're wanting to go out there and get these good coaches, you're going to have to expect some of them to be in the playoffs, right?
Right.
And that's what I worry about Rhett Lashley not doing good this. I mean, they're doing fine, but not making the playoffs is that he's going to be the one that's available. And I don't necessarily think that the one that's available is the best one. You know what I'm saying? So really, we need Memphis to really do good for the rest of this year so they can take that final group of 5 slot. So that'll be that's what we need to happen.
Right. And if that's the case, would we want SMU to win the ACC? So they're still going.
Oh yeah, I would like. Yeah, the thing is, the ACC sucks, but Miami's still really good. So
I was about to say, you still got to deal with Miami, so the likelihood of them winning the ACC championship is not super high. But
yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting to think about those things. And as the coaching search continues, I mean, we're only in week 2. I mean, and that just shows you kind of how much things change as kind of the rumor mill grinds on of, Arkansas's talking to so-and-so. Now, it was confirmed that they did have an interview with Missouri's offensive coordinator this week, and that they're expecting to have an interview with Colin Klein, the current OC at Texas A&M, formerly of Kansas State.
Yeah, and I think that would be a suicide for this program if they were to have to go down and hire an OC. It just shows you're not serious about this,
right?
Or people like constantly outbidding you for guys that I don't know. That would just
right. It's like let's see Arkansas step up and flash some money. Like it's like Yurchek mentioned. We know Arkansas has the boosters to do it. Yurchek even mentioned if they get their guy that they're going to have the funding and everything for who they want. So let's go out there and get a coach we want and not have a Lane Kiffin situation where, you're not willing to pay the extra money to get a really good coach. And it pains me to say it, but Kiffin is a really good coach. You may not like how he coaches or some of the things he does, but he still is a good coach. So, I don't want to see that happen to Arkansas again, where they're trying to get a guy and he's either outbid, or they counter and say, hey, instead of this amount, we want to increase it X amount of dollars. Just go out and if Dan Mullen's the guy you want, and go pay that buyout and go bring Dan Mullen over.
Right. I mean, you have the money. Like, stop flirting around with it.
Right.
Like, go out there and show them. I mean, we kind of talked about that whenever John Calipari, was that on the podcast? Whenever John Calipari came on? I think it was. I don't know. But either way, like, I know at least I was. Arkansas, like, you need to go out there and you need to flash that money. Like, you need to go get whoever you want. Because at the time, there weren't any schools that could outbid you. Most likely, maybe, I don't know, Billy Napier goes out here and beats Texas. Maybe they'll have another year under him. Who knows? But right now, there's not another school that should outbid Arkansas.
Right.
At all.
Go out there and either make whoever you're trying to go after say no, meaning they want to stay where they're at, or you get them. Like it's simple. So, to show that you're serious about still wanting to rebuild this football program and get it to that next level and get a good foundation, let's go out and do it properly, and that all goes back to, Yurchek cannot miss on this hire if he's still here and to make this hire.
Right.
So that's going to be a big part of it. I mean, we saw this week, we'll get into it briefly because it's a long topic, but you saw this week the announcement with Arkansas Edge is no more. Arkansas split off from the blueprint company that was running the collective after, you saw just a mass exodus of all the schools that were with them, just drop them because of their ridiculous contracts. And so, who knows what's next in terms of NIL and collectives? Are you going to have a fan-driven collective? Are you going to go out and sign with another company to do your collective, like type of NIL, whatever you want to call it? Collective, fund, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. I think it was a smart move to get away from him, but at the same time, it just shows you how far Arkansas is away from getting this thing figured out.
Like, you're so behind
Right.
the eight ball because the number of, surprising, like look at Ole Miss, for example. They had their collective they have. It was fan driven and started. Like, it's not with any of these companies, but the fans just started this collective,
Right.
and look at where they're sitting now in a really good spot with NIL.
What is the deal with Arkansas outsourcing everything too? I mean, even this coaching search is outsourced. The finding the naming rights for Razorback Stadium is outsourced. Like, dude, hire someone in house
To do
or
this,
have
for you.
someone in house to do this. Like, what are we doing? It just seems like a stupid waste of money to do stuff like that.
Yeah. So, what's next in terms of collective for Arkansas? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see, because you've got to have something, whether it be something started by the fans, we go with a different company that runs your collective out there. I don't know. And that's just important what your check does next there as the football hire, because those are going to go hand in hand with each other in the next, few years as, we try to progress forward and try to essentially play catch up.
Right. And I've talked about it before on here. Like, I just don't know how I like a coach who's worth his salt. Like, I don't know why they would be super interested in a job like Arkansas whenever you don't have that already set up. Right. Dan Mullen, he's I don't want to say he's desperate, because he's not. I mean, he's making bank over there at UNLV, running games. He's not desperate. But if he really wants to be back in the SEC, this may be his shot.
Right.
But at the same time, if someone freaking Dan Lanning, for whatever reason, gets fired tomorrow, you're not going to be able to pull him because you don't have that NIL ready to go for him whenever he gets here, right? No coach wants to have to build that when we're 6 years down the road, 5 years down the road, whatever it is. It's just, it's just dumb that, and putting all your chips in the basket for revenue sharing, like everybody, like, I don't understand, right? I just don't understand the thought process of these people that are running Arkansas athletics when it comes to that, because everybody's going to be able to do that. And that just, I don't know. That's just the base now. It's always going to be NIL. It always will be NIL. It always was NIL.
Hey, it's like Transplant Texans here. Let's not forget the revenue sharing increases 4% each in the next 2 years. Hunter was looking under those couch cushions to find $20.5 million. And it's like you said, revenue sharing is not the answer. You've got to have NIL to supplement on top of the base that is revenue sharing. Like Transplanted Texan said, common man, fan driven, common man, fan funded, the Pigpen Collective, $1 a week giving option, 20K fans times $1 a week is $1 million in a year.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems so simple, right? At the same time, we don't know all the math behind all of it. And this is more or less me voicing frustrations. But the more and more information that comes out, the more and more I'm validated in all of this stuff.
Right.
So I don't know, man. It just seems like, and like, I mean, with all the outsourcing, what does Hunter Yurchek do?
Right.
when you get down to it, what does he do? He's like a middleman between the university and whatever third party they want to outsource stuff to do. Like it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I agree. And looking at it, they're talking about, so October 15th is when the partnership with Blueprint Sports will officially end. So, you got a handful of days left. And so Blueprint Sports, just to kind of give you a background, and I was trying not to dive too much into this, but here we are. Blueprint Sports has been under the microscope for its practices in the recent week, as it was reported that the company kept 75% of net direct revenue between the baseline target and 1.15 million, and 50% of net direct revenue above 1.15 million. So essentially, these collectives that all these schools were doing with Blueprint, if the company's keeping 75% of the money that you collect for your collective, you're not really, the company's benefiting more than what the university is. And those specific numbers was with the deal that was done with Oregon State. There's been no evidence in a similar deal with Arkansas, but Blueprint Sports at one time had over 70 collectives, and now they're just down to 5. So that tells me that there's a problem there.
Right. And the fact that Arkansas is still there, or was still there after all that, just blows my mind too. Because you see people jumping ship, you got to start asking questions. But Trey Biddy did release something the other day stating that Arkansas's deal was not nearly as bad. It was more like 15%, which is much more understandable.
Right.
At the same time, if you did it in-house, though, it would not be anything.
Yeah.
It'd be the cost of whatever your overhead is. And that's it. Yeah, like I don't understand it
here. Hunter Yurchek, shorthand for the term outsource.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't know, man. It didn't make any sense to me. Like it's. I think more the reason why they did it is because they were so behind the times, and they were trying to do it quickly.
Right.
Right, and it takes a minute to build a program like that, and I don't think they were.
Yeah, Transplant Texas said Yurchek is batting 1,000 with choosing collectives, 2 now defunct, and a fledgling Razorback raffle, with Saturday's total jackpot sitting at approximately $4,000.
Well, to be fair, the jackpot has done much better than anyone else who uses it in the country. I think people are just really down on Arkansas right now.
Right. I was about to say
at the same time, though, it could have been a third party. Like if they would have just changed the laws, it could have been, a Saracen type casino that did it. And then it could have went to NIL, but no, it's got to go into the Razorback Foundation. It's just, it just rubs me the wrong way.
I was about to say at this rate, if Yurchek, if he is allowed to make this football hire and he doesn't get it right, he's about to be outsourcing, finding him a job.
He's about to be ran off with pitchfork and torches. What are you talking about? He'll be lucky to leave the state unscathed. Right. I'm not saying anything about me, but Arkansas fans are crazy. And the way that he's kind of just been so negligent with stuff, it just doesn't. I don't know, man. It's tough because he's made some decent hires too, right? But at the same time, this whole financial, and that's his whole job, is dealing with the financials of Arkansas's athletic program.
Right. And it's you can give him credit. It just
doesn't make sense.
You can give him credit for hiring Eric Musselman. He did that. Asterisk by John Calipari, because that was not him.
Entirely him. Yeah.
Yeah. He's extended Courtney Difel, smart move there. Extended Dave Van Horn, smart move there. You've got Colby Hale. You went out and got a new basketball coach for your women's team as well. So we'll see how that hire works out. But yeah, I mean, some decent moves. But, when you start messing and screwing around with football, those other good moves will go out the window real fast.
Yeah. And I mean, Transplant Texas makes a good point here. The Razorback Foundation, there's like no accountability, right? And that's where part of this it sucks, because I mean, I get why the Razorback Foundation exists.
Mm-hmm.
But I get it for big donors, for people who legitimately put their money in there to help this program run. When it comes to fans giving their money, it should have something that you can put a FOIA request in and get answers about where your money's going.
Right.
Right. And you can't do that with the Razorback Foundation. So I think there needs to be a little bit more transparency, especially when it's fans giving their money.
Right.
So like the raffle, and stuff like that. We want to know where the money's going. I'm not saying this going to nefarious purposes or whatever, or they're skimming it off the top. I'm not trying to play in it to any of those conspiracy theories, but we just want to know where it's going.
Right.
And I don't think that's a tough ask.
Yeah. It's like Transplant Texas said, Austin is flat out cooking right now. So. And so,
do I never not cook?
Do what?
So do I never not cook?
Fair point. So, that it's going to be interesting to see over the next few weeks and months is what develops with all of this, whether it be the coaching search, the whole collective thing, Yurchek, if he's still here by the end of the year and is making the coaching hire, things like that. But on a more positive note, let's jump over to some Arkansas basketball news. Transplant Texas at Austin, cooking and storytelling master.
Yes, sir.
And so, you jump over to Arkansas basketball, and, an article came out today talking about John Calipari and making a, I don't want to say unique type of deal or, move for college basketball, but that's kind of what it is. He's on the, forefront of being proactive with the basketball program and, working with these donors. As was talked about today, Calipari said, and the example was, look at Lawson Blake last year, who tore his Achilles while working out before the season and missed the entire season. Cal said, what if we just given him $1 million deal and he got injured and was lost for the season? What would the person or, school, collective, booster, whatever, who gave that $1 million feel? How would you go back to that person and ask for more money after they just gave you so much for, players? And Calipari is kind of calling it booster fatigue. I'm sure some of these big donors, they're giving their money for these players and things, and they get hurt and stuff like that. So what Cal has kind of started doing for Arkansas and looking for a solution has called it booster insurance. So he is partnered or not partnered with, he's a customer of a company that a former player of his, former Memphis player, Travis Long, along with another partner, founded the 32 Group. Is a New York-based company that works as an insurance agent backed by Lloyd's of London to offer this product to schools, collectives, businesses, and boosters. So Cal has no part of the business. He's just a customer. So essentially what this is giving these boosters, collectives, or the school some, a break if a guy gets hurt and, that's out of your control. And so an example is if an Arkansas basketball player is being paid $1 million, Arkansas, in quotes, will pay $30,000 for this insurance. And if that player is lost to a season-ending injury before January 15th, So in that kind of non-conference type of schedule, whatever entity that gave that $1 million to this player, whether it be the school, collective, or business donor, booster, whoever, will be paid back in full, while the athlete who has already collected or collecting will still get their money as well. And it kind of helps both sides. You're not screwing over the player just because they got hurt, but also you're not screwing over the booster who donated all this money or, collective, whatever, to have a player that they helped get, and it's just they're missing the season. And
right.
so
And I just don't know why we can't have an AD that's forward thinking like that.
right.
Right. No one else has said that. And it comes from your basketball coach. I was joking. I was like, hey, when he's done coaching basketball, does he want to go and be the AD for Arkansas?
Right.
But you need to be forward thinking like that. Always thinking of those ideas. And I don't know why. I don't know why we can't have someone that does that.
Right. It's like Transplant Texan said there, Cal out here making moves that you wonder why Yurachek or Remy didn't introduce themselves to the whole program. Why are we not doing that for football, for baseball, whatever you want to call it? You're not whatever you want to call it, but whatever sport. And so you see that, and, they're talking about it. That way that booster won't feel as like their money is just up in flames or torched. And so, the partner in this 32 group, Steve Stelmach, he was quoted as saying, when I first heard the idea, I couldn't believe something like this didn't already exist. I can't believe every university and every collective doesn't have this in place. Stelmach estimates there's over $1 billion in direct revenue sharing among the so-called power conference teams, and then an additional $1 billion to $2 billion more in NIL collective payouts. And the idea that none of this was insured is crazy. And Stelmach said, in quotes, "We are building the bus as we are driving it down the highway."
Yeah. I don't
so
know.
Cal said his team's boosters will be fully insured this year, and has heard a universal response when he speaks to them about it. They say, thank you. They're already thinking about it. People are rich enough to be part of it. People who are rich enough to be part of this are rich for a reason. They don't throw their money away. This is a way to protect the donor. I mean, what can you ask more than a coach thinking about, hey, these guys are going to support me, so how can I help them? What can we do to support them and make sure that the way they're helping us out, getting these players, giving them these NIL deals, whatever it may be, just because of a weird freak accident injury.
And I don't know if you caught this, but I think it was last week or the week before, Mike Irwin, at Pig Trail Nation, he went on the TV, and he talked about how Frank Broyles always thought of the fans and the boosters, all of them, as the customers, and the customer's always right. And at least in the eyes of Mike Irwin, Honey Yurachek doesn't have that same philosophy. And it just seems like, hey, I just need you to do this because you're our bank, right? I just need to go and take out some money. Whenever Frank Broyles was here, he went and he had relationships with these boosters. He went out and shook hands and kissed babies with people. Like, he was like a legit politician when it came to it. And Hunter Yurachek just doesn't do that. And I mean, there's a lot of things that fans want that he's just not willing to give them.
Right.
Because, it costs too much money, or this, that, and the other. Well, maybe if you stopped outsourcing everything, we'd have a little bit more money to do all that stuff.
Yeah. 100%. And who knows, maybe this is going to start, that it's good news to talk about this, and it's good to see all this happening. Well, how much is that going to affect with the news of now the Kareem Rattal injury? We talked about this right before we jumped on the show. he missed the event at Bud Walton, the prime time at the Palace, and will miss an extended time after having a procedure on his back. They said that he could be sidelined for as many as 12 weeks as he recovers from surgery, which would put him on the court around the start of SEC play. And, if he is playing or gets back in action around the start of SEC play, he's not going to be able to be effective and be ready to rotate in and play right away. So,
Right.
I don't think this is going to be a big hit to Arkansas's roster this year, as there were talks that he might be a redshirt type guy this year anyway. But, that's a perfect example of, what Cal was talking about. 12 weeks into the SEC play, you're looking at that January 15th date that kind of Cal outlined there potentially. So, this is the start of an exact reason why Cal is doing these types of things for his boosters and supporters.
Yeah. And, shout out to Andrew Hutcherson at Best of Arkansas Sports for putting that out like just a few hours ago. But yeah, the thing with him is he was expected to be kind of a developmental guy, and that's
Right.
where it hurts, right? Is that he's not going to be able to get that development that he otherwise would. Now, to the team itself, other than maybe having one less guy to practice against, it's not going to hurt them as much this year, likely anyway. But it is going to affect him in the future because he's not going to have that time to actually practice and get better.
Yeah, exactly. And so, hate to see that for Ratal, but, at least he's not out for the entirety of the season. Yeah, you're going to miss a good chunk of it, but at least you can get back. And even if you're going to redshirt, you can still practice with the guys, work on that development after you get kind of back from this injury issue that he has. So, a lot going on there, and we covered that. And it was been a busy week, a lot to cover. And before we get out of here, we got to have our fun and go back to the Pick'em Challenge. Unfortunately, Hobbs, dropped off, had some internet issues, so he'll make his picks. But coming into this week, a little bit of shakeup in the standings for our Pick'em, as Hobbs and I are now tied for first, and Austin's still on our heels, back 2 games, as Hobbs and I are sitting at 32 and 28 both, and then Austin at 30 and 30.
Yeah. Whenever you first started that, I thought you were saying, unfortunately, he's caught up, but I guess that wasn't where you were heading with it.
I mean, that is unfortunate that he's caught up, because now I'm not single lead of first place there. But
yeah,
we'll go ahead and jump into these picks here. First one of the day is Alabama, coming off that win over Vandy, headed to Columbia to take on the Missouri Tigers. Alabama 4-1, Missouri 5-0. Like I said, Alabama coming off that win over Vandy. Missouri coming off a win versus UMass. Spread for this game is starting out at 2.5 in favor of Alabama. Alabama on the road at Missouri. What are you thinking?
I think Missouri. I hate to say that I think Missouri's bad. I think they're pretty good, but I don't think they're as good as they are leading on. Because their schedule is just horrible. I think this is their first big test. I think Alabama takes it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. This, it's Alabama. They've shown that they got over that week 1 loss to Florida State, and they bounced back. And as much as I'd say it, Ty Simpson looks really good what they're doing, what they came out and done the past few weeks. You come back, get from some frustrations out and beat ULM 73-0. You beat Wisconsin 38-14. You come out and beat Georgia 24-21. And a really good Vanderbilt team, you beat them 30-14. So, it seems like they're really starting to find their rhythm here. And so, yeah, I agree. Even though it is a road matchup, I think Alabama takes this one. Next one is an interesting, as it's a Big Ten conference game, as the Indiana Hoosiers are headed to Eugene, Oregon, and Autzen Stadium to take on the number 3 Oregon Ducks. Both teams 5-0 coming into this matchup. Indiana having a road win against Iowa last week, 20-15. And then, as we know, Oregon coming off that double overtime thriller against Penn State, 30-24. Spread for this game starts out in favor of Oregon by 6.5 at home. Where are you going with this one?
Yeah, I think Oregon's just too good. If you had to tell me right now, put a gun to my head and said, "Hey, you have to pick the national championship this year," I'm probably picking Oregon. I think they're really, really good. Yeah, I think Indiana is better than what we thought too, because they put it on
Illinois.
So yeah, I think Oregon's I just think they're the best team in the nation right now.
I agree. Go Ducks. I'm following suit there. I agree. Next one is a classic, the Red River rivalry. Oklahoma is headed to the Cotton Bowl to take on Dallas. Oklahoma 5-0. Texas 3-2, coming off that loss last week to Florida on the road. Oklahoma coming off of a bye week. Or sorry, not a bye week. They played Kent State and won that game 44-0. So, there's a potential that they have John Mateer back for this game. But either way, this is going to be a fun matchup. It's always a big-time matchup between these two schools in this rivalry game. Spread for this game, 1.5 in favor of Texas. And that's probably just because the question mark around John Mateer.
I don't even think. Okay, so first of all, like my head, like 90% of me is gonna go with the Sooners, and that's who I'm gonna pick. I'm picking Oklahoma, but part of me is like, dude, this rivalry is always crazy. They always like have these back and forth matchups, shootouts, and Texas could probably win this game. They probably will, now that I'm selecting Oklahoma. But at the same time, I just don't know. I think they're a much better team than Texas. I don't think Texas is that good. Arch, at least this year, hasn't been a very good quarterback. And I think even with their backup quarterback, I think Oklahoma is going to probably do some damage.
I agree. You look at Texas, Arch Manning not living up to the hype, of what he's been expected to do. What Oklahoma has done. Yeah, John Mateer is question mark, but you have a decent backup quarterback. And I'm like you. I haven't been impressed. Texas coming off that loss last week to Florida. Florida's not a bad team. They're talented. Maybe they're finding the rhythm. But also, I think this season Texas has been a letdown compared to expectations. So like you, I'm going with Oklahoma here because it's the choice that makes the most sense. But as we know with rivalry games, especially one like this one, some crazy things, have happened in this game, and I wouldn't rule anything out. But yeah, give me Oklahoma in this one to take the win. As we continue on into the Big 12, TCU is headed to Manhattan to take on Kansas State. These teams 4-1 for TCU. Kansas State 2-4. TCU is coming off that 35-21 victory over Colorado. Kansas State coming off a 35-34 loss to Baylor. Spread for this game in favor of TCU by 1.5. So a coin flip here for the road team. TCU, Kansas State. Who are you taking?
TCU. And stop picking my picks because I'm never going to be able to catch up if you just do that. But I imagine you're going to pick TCU too because this is the easiest game on this entire list to pick because Kansas State's not good. So yeah, I'm picking TCU.
Very, very underwhelming Kansas State team this year. And yeah, you're right. I am taking TCU, but that's just like you look at Kansas State, what the losses they've had this year, only 2 wins. They've just, I think they had a lot of hype going into the season. And was, been hyped up to be one of the top teams in the Big 12 this year, and that's just not the case. As we move forward, we're staying in the Big 12. You have the Iowa State Cyclones headed to Boulder to take on the Colorado Fighting Deion Sanders Buffaloes. As Iowa State's 5-1, Colorado 2-4, 0-3 in conference play. Iowa State is coming off that loss to Cincinnati, shockingly last week. That was a game we picked, and then Colorado, as we just mentioned, coming off that loss against TCU. Spread for this game is starting out at 2.5 in favor of the road team, Iowa State. Does Prime bounce back here, or does Iowa State, continue it and leave Colorado winless in the Big 12?
Yeah, I think I'm going to probably go with what do you call them?
The Cyclones?
The Cyclones. I don't think Colorado's all that good, really. They are playing at home, and I'm also not super I don't know. I've picked Iowa State so many times, and then I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna go Iowa State again. It's probably gonna bite me in the butt, but I think they're better than Colorado. I don't think Iowa State's super good anyway. I don't think they're the number 22 team in the country.
Right.
But I think they're better than Colorado.
Right. When you have Colorado sitting over here playing quarterback musical chairs, that you don't see that success a lot of the time. It's like you said, it's like the old saying, if you have 2 quarterbacks, 3 quarterbacks, you don't have a quarterback at all.
Right.
So I'll take the Cyclones as well, just because that's the point. I mean, Colorado hasn't seemed impressive this year. Iowa State's been decent, but I don't think they're the number 22 team. They haven't necessarily played a super tough schedule. And then with them losing to Cincinnati last week, continues to raise some questions for me, as well as the close games they've had this season so far. As we continue on, we jump over the Big Ten. The Nebraska Cornhuskers are headed to College Park, Maryland, to take on the Terrapins. 4-1 Nebraska, 4-1 Maryland. Nebraska coming off of 38-27 win over Michigan State. Maryland coming off a loss 24-20 against Washington. Spread for this game, 6.5 in favor of the road team, Nebraska. Nebraska and the Fighting Mini Mahomes.
I might be a little bit off with this one, but I'm feeling Maryland. What do you call it? Matt Rule has done a decent job at Nebraska, but I just feel like there's always one game where he just kind of flops. And I feel like this one's probably it. They have to go to Maryland. Maryland's not a bad team. But I don't know. Yeah, so I'm just going with my gut. So I'm saying Maryland.
Yeah, I'll take the Cornhuskers. They had a close game a couple weeks ago with Michigan. Lost that game by 3, bounced back last week against Michigan State in a win. And so I think, that flop could have been that Michigan game where they had the chance to beat Michigan but didn't. And so I'm going to take Matt Rule on the road here. Next up, we jump back over to the SEC as Georgia is on the road for another away game to Auburn, Alabama. Jordan Hare to take on the Auburn Tigers. Georgia 4-1, Auburn 3-2. Georgia coming off that win against Kentucky 35-14. Auburn lost 16-10 against Texas A&M. This could be the nail in the coffin for Hugh Freeze if Georgia comes in here and you get blown out by the Bulldogs. Spread for this game starts out at 3.5 in favor of Georgia. Does the magic of Jordan Hare help Auburn, or does Georgia take the win here?
Man, I'm hoping for another Florida Billy Napier situation. Give Arkansas just one more week. Be nice, but I can't. Georgia's good. Auburn's not very good. So I'm going to go Georgia.
I agree. This isn't your typical Georgia, Gunnar Stockton.
Right.
Yeah, he's not going to just wow you, but he's been a decent quarterback for Georgia so far this season. Whereas you flip for Auburn, they're potentially benching Jackson Arnold soon, and they could be without a coach here in a week or two at some point as well. So, I know things have been fed up with Hugh Freeze. Yes, they're 3-2 on the season, but those wins are coming against Ball State, South Alabama, and Baylor. So, you lose to Oklahoma and A&M, close games there, with each of those being a touchdown or less game. But, I think some fans in Auburn, Alabama are getting very frustrated with Hugh Freeze right now.
Yeah.
We jump back over the Big Ten. You have the Michigan Wolverines headed to LA to take on the USC Trojans. Both teams 4-1. Michigan coming off the win against Wisconsin 24-10. USC coming off of a close loss 34-32 to Illinois. Spread for this game is starting out at 2.5 in favor of the home team, USC, who has been one of the top scoring offenses in college football this season.
Man, this one's tough for me too. I don't know. Michigan's had a decent defense, right? I'm gonna just go with my gut and say Michigan. I'm probably gonna regret it later, but
yeah, this one's a tough one too, because it's like you look at Bryce Underwood, all the hype entering the season. 3 touchdowns and 1 interception on the season for Bryce Underwood.
Yeah, that's not good.
Whereas you have USC with one of the top scoring offenses. We know that's what, they do. It's the question is, does their defense be able to hold up? You look at all the games that USC's been in so far this year, going back to their first game of the season. 13 points to Missouri State. Georgia Southern scores 20 on you. Purdue scores 17. Michigan State scores 31. You lose to Illinois, and they put up 34 points. So, we know USC can score, but can they stop somebody? But I'm going to hope they can this week, so I'm going to take USC this week. As we continue on here in the final 2 matchups, we jump back over to the Big 12. The number 18 ranked BYU Cougars are headed to Tucson to take on the Arizona Wildcats. BYU 5-0, 2-0 in conference play. Arizona 4-1, 1-1 in conference play. BYU coming off a win 38-24 over West Virginia. And then Arizona coming off a 41-13 win over Oklahoma State. Spread for this game, 2.5 in favor of the road team BYU. BYU seems like they have another great squad this year, but they do head to Tucson. So what are we thinking?
Yeah, I'm going to go with BYU still. Satake, is that his name? The coach over there?
Yes.
Yeah, he's done a really good job. That BYU program, consistently one of the better teams, especially out west. So yeah, I'm gonna go with them over Arizona.
I agree there. This BYU team just looks like BYU seems to be the team that is now one of the top, if not the top team in the Big 12. And they've had good season after good season, and it's hard not to pick them. It's like Transplant Texan said here, the pick'em seems difficult this season, and what appears to be a sure thing isn't always the case. We are feeling that on a personal level with these picks week after week, Transplanted. So staying in the Big 12, our final matchup of the week, Arizona State is headed to Salt Lake City, Utah to take on the Utah Utes. Number 21 ranked Arizona comes into this matchup 4-1, 2-0 in conference play. Utah is 4-1 with 1-1 in Big 12 play. Arizona State coming off a victory over TCU 27-24. Utah coming off a win over West Virginia 48-14. Spread for this game is in favor of Utah by 4.5 or 5.5 as the home team. The the Utes, a tough place to play in Salt Lake. We've seen what Kenny Dillingham and this Arizona State team is capable of. Who are you taking in this one?
I'm gonna go Arizona State. I still am a believer in Kenny Dillingham. It's gonna be tough. I think this is probably one of the best games on this schedule, except for maybe that Indiana Oregon game.
Right.
And even then, I mean, there's still a chance that might not be very good, but still, yeah, I think it's going to be a very good game, and I think Arizona has enough to pull it out.
See, I'm going to go Utah on this one. 56 degrees and potentially raining in Utah. Arizona coming from the desert, not used to playing in the rain, the cold. Utah is always a tough place to play. And that environment is one of the more premier environments in the Big 12. And so give me Utah to take this one at home. So we got a couple different picks this week. We'll see what Hobbs picks. And we'll talk about it on Sunday. But lengthy show tonight, but we had a lot to talk about. It was a busy week with, all the press conferences, all the stuff with Blueprint and the NIL and Arkansas Edge and everything. So as we wrap up here, anything else before we get out of here?
No, man, I think we covered just about all of it.
I agree. So, kickoff 3:15 this weekend on SEC Network. It's going to be fun to see what happens as Arkansas heads to Knoxville to take on the Vols in Neyland Stadium. How does this team respond, and how does the effort show up this week under new interim head coach Bobby Petrino? We will see what happens on Saturday. I'm excited to sit back and watch, get the popcorn ready. Who knows what's going to happen? So until next time, we'll see you on Sunday for our Razor recap, and we'll talk about what happens, whether it be good or bad, and if we hear any more news regarding the coaching search. So until Sunday, everybody have a great Friday, have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Sunday.